Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Agency Life, the podcast where we go into deep detail about what it's like to run an agency. Today, I'm joined by our operations director, Miss Vicky Simans. Mrs. You know something? We were shooting a live podcast with your husband, Chris Simans, a podcast called And We Have an Office Dog, and he made the comment by accident, "You're stealing my wife," and I've just called you Miss instead of Mrs.
There you go.
I am in trouble.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Never mind.
how are you doing?
Good.
How's your week been?
All right. I think, honestly, this week there's been a lot of learning for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've been quite busy. I think we're at a point where we're obviously trying to look at the agency, get an overview, like where are we at? Where do we want to go? How are we going to grow? Basically getting the state of the lay of the land.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it was interesting this week because I think we had a chat with finance, looking at where we are, looking at how we're going to grow. And I think it just brought back to me, just coming back to basis in terms of we really need to just have another look at the basics. Like, we're doing a good job. Things are moving along. Like, we're getting new business. The team are doing a great job. But I think it's just looking at actually how do we maximize things in terms of like efficiency, profitability, because I think it opened my eyes because I was like, actually, there's still a lot that we can be doing here. Not that it's ever done, but I think it's in my mind just taking a step back and being like, actually, there's some work we can do, like a lot more work we can do here to just get things a bit better. Yeah,
there's a Bruce Lee quote. I think it's Bruce Lee. Let's say it's Bruce Lee. Let's say it's Margaret Thatcher. So Bruce Lee says, I'm not scared of the man that knows 1,000 kicks. I'm scared of the man that practices one kick 1,000 times. Now, with running an agency, it's a formula business. There's certain things that have been mapped out since the dawn of time that you can optimize for. And it's funny when you're going for growth, it's either, you can't really grow a business and have amazing top line revenue, so revenue growth, and bottom line growth, profit. It's very hard to maintain both. And when you're doing lots of different projects and lots of different things and onboarding lots of new people and giving you responsibilities, it's really easy to get caught up in taking your eye off of that, practicing that one kick. And it's so fundamental. But I'm glad that there's a safe pair of hands like you behind the wheel, because that means that all of that stuff is taken care of. And I think it's a Peter Drucker quote, what gets measured gets managed. It's like looking at utilization. Like, we had utilization before, but it was like department level, which is not useful.
Well, there's a use to it, but yeah, we need to look at it different ways.
Yeah. So getting it per person, looking at profitability per client, just really smart things that when you're small, and what usually happens when you're small, you've got one or two big clients and they're profitable and pay for everything, which you can't do when you're a bigger organization. It's just not a thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward. We're doing our monthly meeting today. What are you looking forward to talking to the team about in particular?
So yeah, I'm actually talking to them about what I've been working on, which is utilization. So we use Coda as the project management tool. So what I've been doing is actually working on how I make it, because I look at it, but I think it's something that the team need to be looking at it day to day and just making it easier for them, actually helping them to do their jobs, which is part of my role, a key part of my role, and facilitating that. So I just want to talk them through like how I'm sort of helping them to make it more visible. That's on a client level, an individual level. And just, I think just reiterating like how we measure it and why it's important, and empowering them to look at it. Because I think that's the thing. Account managers, they do a great job. But I think, that's the thing, they focus a lot on the delivery, which is fantastic. So I need to support them in actually thinking about.
Very proud of their work, and like that, like
brilliant jobs.
Yeah, that's such a nice feeling to see them going over and above, and like really, because you can tell when there's apathy. Yeah, and I think that's an agency killer. I used to work at a big box agency, like one of the network agencies, is my first job. and no one really cared. If the client went up or down, they were like, okay, it's went up. Okay, it's went down. They just didn't really care. The client partners cared because they were bonused on
Yeah,
it.
I was going to say.
But the account managers didn't. Ours do. They're coming to us with like totally left of field ideas, and it's gonna be a good couple of months, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that I'm sort of trying to help them to do their jobs from that perspective. And yeah, because I think that's the thing, it's they're doing a great job of delivery. So like, how do I help them in terms of making sure we manage that best for the client? And like, I think that's the thing as well at the moment. The nice thing is like we've got them doing not just client tasks, but we've also got them working on internal stuff. And I think that's the thing as well. Like they're recognising the importance of that. So, you know, you're getting them to work on some marketing for Type A, which is exciting.
Yeah, I asked actually when it came to working out what's billable and non-billable, we put together a deck. That's just what I do now. I just take credit for all your work. You put together a deck and it looked at our internal work, and I was like, we should make that billable so that, you know, it's taken seriously as if it's like a real client, because we don't like the classic thing. What's that phrase? It's like the cobbler's children run barefoot, meaning that you never do your own thing well because you're too busy doing it for other people. Yeah. And I didn't want that to happen, but you said.
So yeah, the idea of having billable hours is so you're mindful of profitability, but it doesn't take away from the fact that that non-billable stuff is still important and it is still vital. It's more about, and I think that's one of the things that I do want to get clear with the team, where I'm talking about billable versus non-billable. I'm not saying billable important, non-billable. We still need to prioritise them correctly, but that non-billable stuff is just as important to support the billable work.
Yeah.
And I think that is a key point though, and I can see why you might think, oh, non-billable, we don't really want to focus on that, but you need to invest in that stuff to like things like training as well. That would be non-billable, but we still need to invest in that to support the billable stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to some internal projects, so doing our own marketing and eating our own dog food. So pre-pandemic, we done quite a lot of it, and it got us to a really good place. However, when you kind of analyze anything that you're doing for a business, it makes sense to look for bottlenecks and look for weaknesses so that you can like make allowances for it, or you can plug gaps. And here's a question. Who have you heard of Harvard University? Yeah. Who invented it?
Oh, I don't know.
Exactly. So, you know, with Type A, it was always someone who used to work for us actually said a really damning thing to me once. He said when he was leaving the business, he's like, I said, why are you leaving? He's like, well, and this was in 2016, 17, so quite a while ago. So it's like we were very young. He said, well, it's not really a company, is it? You're just a freelancer and we help you do the work. And I was like, oh, God, shit, you're right. Okay. Yeah, that's true. So the reason why I said the Harvard thing is that was actually Deepak from Pearl Lemon that told me that little one. The reason I say that is because you don't want to build it around you, the cult of you, because I was the bottleneck. So when it was pandemic time, we were all locked in our house. I did do a couple of videos, but you need to be like Mr. Happy all the time. And I am generally like, I've got a very middle of the road disposition, but doing that kind of like overly Americanized happy YouTuber stuff, it's not very sustainable. It really depends on your mood. And, you know, I want to be able to take holidays and not constantly on the button for, you know, needing to be there all the time. So, we're putting together some marketing stuff. We're going to be doing, already we're doing our own SEO. So we started to rank for some stuff. Yeah. I'm not going to say what. You can probably all check, surely, SEO people anyway. But we started to rank for stuff and we converted a lead actually from ranking for something, which usually I was always like, oh, if you rank for like SEO agency terms, that's, you know, Bob the Builder who doesn't know what he's doing and he's got 20 quid to spend. Nope, this was our retainer size.
Fantastic.
Yeah, really
That's
good.
Really encouraging.
this is part of the marketing as well. Obviously, it's not for sales and lead gen. It's more for because the thing is with our business, there's two tranches, right? There's the marketing for sales and there's the marketing to hire, because the more sales you get, the more people you need, and that's the balance. What else? We're building some internal tooling, which I'm not going to say too much about right now. Building out a big social media calendar, and just loads going on, but it feels calm and controlled going on, rather than, so we've got Ron, the OG videographer. That's him.
Where is he?
He's really humble and chilled, as you can tell. And Ronald Ibe. Do you have a domain?
Ronald Olive.
Just Google Ronald Olibe. The original OG videographer. That whooping is completely lost. I can't remember what I was gonna say about it. So we used to do video stuff together, but he used to come and have to like G me up.
Okay.
To give me like energy to like get in the zone, and we want to build things that do not require one man to be G'd up.
Yeah.
So that's what we're currently building.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think your videos were great. I think I didn't know you very well like a few years ago, but even I'd seen the videos.
Team hated that.
I'd seen
when we used to hire people. It's like, how did you hear about Type A? And they're like, oh, I've watched the videos. And everyone's like, oh, don't. His ego is too much.
Yeah, Chris was like, oh, there's this guy called Ross. I'm like, who? Oh, that one. Yeah. So yeah, and saw your face on banners, and so
that was. Can I tell you a quick story about the face on banners? I don't know if this will get me in trouble or not. Well, we'll see. So I'll tell you, I'll just not say the company name. So there's a very large SEO tool, the biggest in the world, in fact, that I've done a lot of work for in 2019, promoting them and giving them content and things. And they got me to sign a release waiver, which I didn't really pay any attention to, which allowed them to use my likeness.
Your likeness? Oh, wow, okay.
In marketing material. And I thought, oh, that just means that's like a release form so they can put my videos on their site.
Yeah.
What they've done, to this day, someone sent me a text message and they're like, who's this? I think it was Stuart. He's like, who's this boy-headed bastard I see on my Facebook or something like that? Because they're still using my face in their ads.
Oh, wow.
And that year at Brighton, I remember that there was like a 7-foot banner with my big stupid face on it and all the leaflets had me on it. And I walked up to them, I'm like, what are you doing? Because they didn't tell me.
Oh my
and they're like, it's great, right? I'm like, this is like,
that's crazy.
I feel like if I was American, I'd be like, I'm great, look at me, my face on a banner. There's something about being British that is so cringeworthy and embarrassing.
But also the way you are, that's not you. And I think it's you're not that, it's one thing if they spoke to you, that is different. But the fact that they didn't, I can imagine you would have been like not happy at all. Yeah,
so that was the thing.
Wow.
And Stuart, I'm not going to, he said, who's this C word following me around the internet? Thank you, Stuart.
He's everywhere. But I think, like, joking apart, I think your stuff you did was fantastic. Like, it was engaging, it was accessible, and it definitely had, like, it's done great for you. I got the impression it did well for Type A, but like you said, the limitation of that it was very much you. And I think from a business perspective, it's great now that is more focus on the business, but also that takes the pressure off you, because I think doing that yourself and driving it does, one, it's a lot of hard work, and two, it's not going to be beneficial in the long run.
It had no permanence either. What I didn't realise was, so there's a bunch of people, because making SEO content, especially if it's basic, can be quite dull. So I remember I was asked to do a video about internal linking, and you're just like, oh, God, not a lot of entertainment value there. But it's important, right? So it's meant to be educational. But we never really done that sort of stuff. We were getting onto it, so trying to rank videos for SEO keywords and things. But we done SEO news. The problem with that is that has got a shelf life of a week or two, and then it's no longer relevant.
Yeah.
So all that SEO, all that SEO traffic, all the traffic from that was not SEO traffic. It was social media traffic, which relied on you feeding the beast. Same with a company that hired us to do their SEO, one of the big social media brands. If they all went on holiday for 2 weeks, their traffic would go to hard zero because they had no rankings. It was all Facebook, Twitter, all that sort of thing.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the marketing is kicking off. We've done a bunch of comparator analysis to see like what's actually out there and what we should be aiming for. Surprisingly thin. There's like 2 or 3 big digital marketing companies that are doing well with their own digital marketing.
Interesting.
And the rest are just nowhere.
Was that a surprise for you? Or was that the feeling you were getting?
Kind of. So when people back in the day used to be like, oh, you're doing so well, you're so successful and so young, I'm just like, I knew that the reason for it wasn't some magic that I had in me. It was because I was in an industry that was growing and I was just surfing the wave of the growth. Our business grew at the rate at which the market grew, which is technically standing still because you're not doing anything. But now, how many LinkedIn posts have you seen over the last year of like, I've went freelance, I've started an agency?
Yeah. Like
peak agency.
Yeah, exactly. And that's definitely like a post-pandemic thing as well.
Yeah. I've noticed that. So on sales and new business this month, so we got, I think, 6 good leads in, like really good, our target, the whole thing. We've converted 2 and 2 are still pending, but we hit 30%, so I wouldn't expect to convert any more. But the ones we lost, one we said no to because the CMO came on and he was just like, you were on that call.
I was on the call, yeah.
We probably shouldn't say just in case they watch this, but like, what a fucking asshole. Jesus.
Yeah, that was it was a one where it's like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't think I'm going to want my team to talk to you. So to deal with that. And it's always things you always feel a bit like, so you always have to second guess yourself as well and be like, is this a professional thing, or actually that's such a core part of what you need to think about. So the actual people you'd be working with.
Yeah, you need to get really, it's like chemistry call, and there was there's just bad vibes. So we stepped away. The other ones, I'm seeing competitor agencies cut their own throat at the moment. What do I mean by that? Yeah. I mean, we lost one because budget. So our fees are not that high considering what we give people, like these interactive digital PR assets that are like fully developed plus outreach. It ends up working out like very cheap to generate links in the long run with that methodology. So they're beating us on pricing, but the pricing is like half of ours. And I'm like, what are you doing? Both client and agency. I'm like, our margins are like 20%. There's no way in hell you're gonna make any money. Another one was contract length. They were it was between us and another agency. He's like, we really want to work with you. However, we can only do a 30-day rolling contract. And I'm like, no.
And also, what are you going to do in that time? Like, what value do you think you're going to get? Like,
just real alarm bells when someone's like 30-day cancellation. I'm like, why? Marketing budgets are signed off annually. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that is, we've also had, not in Taipei, but I mean, I've had it for where contra deals sort of thing about, paying, if from an SEO perspective, for example, paying like dependent on performance or shares, etc. And I've done it in the past, but it's just, I think it's all red flags now. That's something that's been done in the past. And I think if people are serious, they need to invest and they need to understand what they're paying for and why it's important to have that commitment.
Yeah, back in the day, I used to try and really hard sell people and convert them into like why it's a great idea. So speaking to one of the prospects, and he's like, so why should we go you, and why this and why that, and da-da-da. I'm like, you've seen our cred stack, we've done a full proposal, we've looked at how your business works, we've dissected it, we've told you a strategy that we would end up doing. You know why? He's like, oh, I'm just not convinced. I'm like, fine, I'm done then. Like there's no, whereas before, I think when I was starting out, I would have been like, oh, well, I'll shovel your snow and babysit your children and what, like, like have the shirt off my back.
Yeah.
Literally.
I'll give you a puppy. Yeah.
that's a good marketing strategy.
Yeah, there you go.
But I don't think we're just less bothered, which sounds almost smug, but it's actually bad business to
I was going to say.
pull that into the agency because it just creates absolute chaos. One of the values that we kind of live by is fix the inputs, do not manage outputs. And before we had all level of retainers that were all based on hours. We had all level of like contract length. Some were 30-day rolling, some were quarterly, some were one-off projects, some were whatever. Chaotic. Try forecasting that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's like you, because I was going to say like what drove that switch in mindset, but I suppose it's what you've said around actually you saw the impact of doing that and just trying to be everything to everyone.
Taking a step back and looking at, so it's when you start doing longer term thinking as a CEO. I don't use that term. I say MD because we don't have a board. So as an MD, longer term thinking around what's going to happen this year, and also not looking at your cash in bank as your personal. That was another thing, actually. I created personal security for myself because back in the day I was like watching all this Gary Vee stuff and he's like, reinvest in the company. I'm like, great idea, grow. But the thing is, if everything went to shit, I had $2,000 in my bank account and my rent was almost that. So you're like, that's not enough to live here.
Yeah.
So you take enough out of the company to be secure for like a year, which is excessive, but that means that if anything really bad happens, it'll be fine. And then you start looking at company money as company money, and you start thinking of, I can spend this for freedom and growth instead of, we are precious, we must protect the cash in the bank at all costs, which is just dumb because you're looking at it every month. Getting management accounts, game changer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's interesting, that point about the company finance, because I think in the past with agents, like I've helped run an agency and we really did invest, but then it didn't work out. So for several reasons, partly a market thing, but I think that's the thing. And so we've not made that mistake again, and we're trying to, because I think that makes you more confident though as well. Because like you say, if you know I've got that security, you can be more confident in your decisions, and you can take you can take a little bit more risk.
The risk thing's interesting. So when you're going to spend money on anything when it comes to business, you immediately need to look at how you're going to de-risk. So everything is all just about risk management and how comfortable you are with risk. So the way in which you look at risk inside of a business like an agency is you look at core competencies and you look at pipelines and you look at eventualities. So one of the things that I used to do is like, well, what if I used to be terrified we'd never get any sales. But historically, the problems that Type A have not been around sales ever, which is strange for an agency because most agencies will say it's hard to generate sales. For us, generating the right sales can be tricky, but getting money in has never been that much of a problem. The problem for us was developing staff at a senior level. That's the hard thing for us, because getting an exec in who's a fresh grad, doesn't know anything, you've got years of teaching them stuff and they're still going to be like, this is amazing, I'm learning all this stuff. Get someone who's got 10 years experience and they're like, what now, Ross? I have the same experience as you. I'm like, oh, no, shit. I'm like, I don't know. But then you start hiring people that are better than you and more experienced than you. And then you say to them, this is the issue. Go solve the issue. And they're like, oh, cool. And then they do it. And you're like, oh, that's right. That was too easy. What happened there?
No, exactly. And I think that's the thing, though. I think you've been, you've had to do everything, or you've been in that position where it's and that, I think that comes though from being a leader as well. Like naturally it's your business and you've grown it, and then actually the great thing is like you definitely got to a point now where you're giving like more to Ray, who's our technical director, and I think that's great for him. I think he's really enjoying it. You're giving like more stuff to me in terms of like projects and things to focus on, and I've got the scope, the capacity, I can plan it out. Yes, I'll still run it past you, so you're still in the loop. But I think that's the thing. It's nice now. It's getting to the point where you're definitely focusing more on what you need to be doing. I think that naturally comes as well from an agency thing, because as you grow the agency, it's like, when do you hand that over and when do you hold on to it?
Yeah, company RACI matrix. Who's responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. For most things, I should just be consulted.
Yeah.
That's it. And I shouldn't be responsible or accountable for any of it. Talking about Ray taking more responsibility, that felt quite good this week, actually. So we're doing this whole Google Analytics 4, building a product for it so we can roll it out to clients and doing the training and all that sort of thing. And you're in that Slack group with him, and he's asking, well, here's the hours and here's how we see it working and this is what it's going to do. And it then came down to pricing information of like, we could take this from here or we could upsell this and that. I'm like, usually I would give the answer.
I noticed.
And I was like, what do you want to do, Ray?
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to do this. I'm like, cool, go for it. And that's, it's fun to be able to do that and just see things happening because you give people the space and the direction to do it.
Exactly. But I think it's also like, the nice thing is like, you're accountable, but it's also it's reassuring that even if there's things that crop up or whatever, we're on the same, we support each other in that. So we're committed. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not about you make that decision, that's your problem. It's about, okay, we've discussed it, pros and cons. This is what we're going to commit to. You know what? Hopefully it's the right decision, but even if there are issues, we'll work together and we'll just move it forward. And I think it's having that, I think that's the other thing. I think sometimes it's, I've worked in situations in the past where it's felt like, it's been a bit like, well, your thing, you sort it out. Whereas it's like, it is, but equally, even if I don't agree with your decision or you don't agree with mine, it's like, okay, well, let's commit to the same direction.
Yeah, it's been interesting doing one-to-ones with leadership and that's one of the things that I am training myself to be better at is like, how do you speak to leaders in an organization when, I have experience, but not like 20 years leadership experience, And speaking to one of the things that Ray and I ended up talking about, he ended the call with, he's like, so I need to do less and think more. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. But the idea being that, like, when you're in that world of going from delivery into management leadership, when you see a problem, you're like, well, you're a hammer and everything looks like a nail, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Like, oh, I can do this. I've done this a million times before. Yeah. I'm like, you can, but you've also got 30, 40 other things to do. So here's budget and resource. Come up with a plan, which is much harder. And one of the things he's saying is like, oh, I feel guilty when I need thinking time. Not with Delegating and WeWork. He needs thinking time. And I'm like, so put it in your diary. And he's like, oh, will I not get in trouble for that? I'm like, what? You'll get in trouble for not thinking.
Yeah.
But that's actually quite a good point. So one of the things we looked at quite recently was what the percentage of billable should be depending on your level. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk through what we ended up kind of finalizing?
Yeah, so I think this is one of those things, you read a lot of articles, you see a lot of things, you go and experience. And so originally, I think, okay, another thing, right. Sorry, I'm just going to start again.
Take a moment.
Yeah, take a moment. So you go and experience, like, for example, like typically in agencies, you're probably looking around, say, 80%. Like you want to be aiming 80% utilization, just as a broad measure. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what we've been looking at, the other thing we have to take into account is we do a 4-day work week. And I think that's something, it sounds silly, but I sort of forgot. Not forgot, but I think it's something was like, actually, this does make it a lot trickier. It definitely does.
It's mad to me, the fact that we are like profitable, but we do 20% less billable hours than normal.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing. I was like, oh, yeah. So, looking at it, because obviously if you're depending on your level, so if you've got an exec So we're probably going to we are looking at like 90% utilization. What does that mean? So it means that 90% of their hours should be billable, which means things like client work. So we should be able to charge that back. And then manager, you're looking around 85%, so a little bit less. And then director, because that's a role where we've still got some doing in there. So we still need to be doing some like client level strategic, higher level stuff. But also obviously doing more internal stuff, training with the team, managing the team. So you're more looking at like 60% for a director. Yeah, and I think it's doing the maths on it. It made me think, okay, well, that means in practice, this is how many hours that we've got to charge out. And then it's thinking about how do we tie that in with what do we need to be charging to make it profitable? So it's and I think just doing, looking at utilization like that, it's something I was like, okay, this is really something you need to keep top of mind. Because that's the thing, the billable, the internal stuff is still important. But it's actually thinking about, for us to get the level of profitability that we want, we need to be taking that into consideration as well. Yeah.
Excellent. So later on, I think the team are already here. I can see some people in the background like playing ping pong, and I'm like, that's not our guys.
No, that's our team. Hang on.
Something about that. So we're in Canary Wharf at the moment, and it'll be like 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, and my office is right next to the table tennis table. So I just hear, I'm like, who are these dickheads playing table tennis on 10 o'clock? Don't you have things to do, people? But it's nice to be in the office. So I was ill. I was before this recording started. I'm like, I want some therapy, please. So
yes,
can you be my therapist for a little bit?
Absolutely. What do you want to talk about, Ross?
Thank you. So I was ill about 2 weeks ago. I'm over it now. I've still got a little bit of sexy phone voice going on, and I totally took the week off, which I know everyone listening to this, they're like, yes, you're ill, you took the week off.
Yeah.
And that's unusual. Even I had COVID earlier in the year, working at home, but working through it. Completely took it off and was at home for a lot of it and got really mopey. I'm like, oh, what's going on? I got better, went to the gym. I was just instantly a human again. I'm like, oh, if you don't move and you don't leave your couch, you get sad. Got it.
There you go.
And coming into the office every day, although none of the team are here,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't have a quote-unquote office or whatever, I was speaking to a client actually, and they're like, oh, are you going to get the team back into the office, and have it as flexi? I'm like, nah. that is my office. They can piss off.
And also a bit tricky. It's a long way from Dubai?
Abu
Dhabi.
Yeah.
And Berlin. So, yeah.
Yeah, big commute. But what else has happened this couple of weeks?
Well, I was going to ask actually. So you were saying about I think that's the thing though. You've been working really hard. You've been doing a lot, and I think that's probably part of why I got a bit run down.
A couple of things happened. So I think the last 3 months I was a selling machine. Massively uprooted all of our marketing. Converted a bunch of stuff, done a load of internal stuff, and there was one day where I was in here at 6 a.m., which sounds like I'm talking shit. You hear those like hustle guys on the internet, and it's like, you just got to work every hour, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's nonsense because you physically can't. I started drinking those venti Starbucks-sized Americanos. Have you seen them? They're 4 shots.
Yes. Yeah.
That will give you a heart attack, actually. It's great. One of them every morning.
6 a.m.
How about that? So there's a reason why I got sick.
Right.
Too much work. I was getting up at 5. And I was going to bed at like 9, so I didn't have a much of a life. Like I was going out at the weekends and stuff, but sleeping at the weekends mostly. So working a lot. I was also in a calorie deficit.
Yeah.
Because SEO on the beach is coming up, and I want to get some abs every day. No. SEO on the beach is coming up. I put on a ton of weight through the pandemic, and I've just let it sit there, and I'm slowly getting rid of it, which feels good because it gives you more energy.
You're looking much better, by the way.
Thank you. Calorie deficit, gym every day, 5 days a week. in retrospect, that was a wee bit, my central nervous system was fried because I do something called 5x5, which is just heavy as you can, 5 sets of 5 squats every day. So I've had to get new trousers. My legs are getting ridiculous, which is no bad thing.
I was going to say, yeah.
No bad thing. And then there was one weekend where I went to the pub on a Thursday night. I went to the pub on a Friday night, and then I done an all-day brunch drinking thing on a Saturday. Sunday came, the scratchy throat, the blocked nose, the fatigue, and I think what happened was all the inflammation markers from stress, from doing all that work and then being a calories and all that sort of stuff, plus all the alcohol, my body was like, listen, dickhead, this is not something that we can do long term. And it just put me out like that.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to get the balance there, because your body will teach you a very quick lesson. Part of me wants to actually completely remove alcohol from my life. I was speaking to my mate Fraser about this, and I'm like, I like it too much. Not in a, I'm an alcoholic and there's actually vodka in here kind of a way, but like, when it's, going to conferences and meeting people for beers is great fun. Going for a steak and having wine is great fun. But also, probably drinking 12 pints of Guinness of an evening isn't great. So that's where my head's at with that.
Yeah, and I think it's a balance thing, because I think, because I know you were like, you were going great guns in the sense like you were working a lot, going to the gym, like, going out at the weekend, which is great. I think it's just more about getting the balance of it, isn't it? And it's finding, is that what you've come to the decision now? Like, what's changed since you got ill?
I've came to the decision that there's certain pillars that I need to take care of for everything to work. And the main pillar is actually exercise. So sleep is important, definitely important. But I can go on limited sleep if I'm at the gym. There's a sauna in my gym as well. It is so good. So good. It's like, and there's cold showers and stuff like that. So it's kind of like the way I describe it is, when you get a glow stick and you snap it and it lights up.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I feel like after I come out of the gym. I feel like just all those endorphins are pumping. I've got more energy for everything. And I thought I was doing a great job. Ron comes in. What did you say you deadlifted? 285 kg. What do you weigh? 102.
Pounds, that's 600 and a bit.
Yeah. So then you're like, oh, so I'm nothing. Right.
No,
but yeah, the exercise thing is key. Your running is your thing, right?
Yeah. So I think, for me, it's literally, I used to do the gym and I was like, I just don't enjoy it, actually. I had a personal trainer and we went away on holiday for a week and I was like, do you know what? I sat there and I was like, I'm not enjoying this. Why am I doing it? And it would be like first thing in the morning, because I prefer to exercise in the morning. Right. I was like, actually, it's not working for me. And I think what I've tried to do, so I literally go running once a week. And it is good physically, but mentally it's massive. I do it on either Sunday or Monday morning. But yeah, and I think I've just got to the point where I've just stopped. I appreciate what other people do, but I'm just listening now. What works for me? I was like, actually, the running works. I enjoy it. I don't mind it. I was just dreading getting up sometimes in the morning. But also in things like talking about socializing, the positive thing actually since the pandemic, like now I'm more based at home, partly because of the dogs. But I think the positive thing for me out of that, I'm actually going out a bit less. So actually when I go out, I enjoy it more. Yeah. And I've found I am getting older, but I've also found a better balance, I think. And I'm definitely happier at work. Like I'm not like bigging it up for the sake of it. I'm definitely happier at work. That's a big thing for me.
What's making you happy at work? I was speaking to Ron about this because the way I describe our old setup, 2018 setup, as a stress factory, because it kind of is, because the work's hard enough anyway. Yeah. But with the commute, the office thing, office politics. Yeah. In this WeWork, there's a couple of things I've seen. People with like shirts with logos on them downstairs getting group photos taken. And I took a photo of it and I sent it to the group WhatsApp. And I'm just like, be thankful that we're not these dickheads.
We're not.
which is really, I'm sure they're all lovely. And also their water cooler chat
Oh yeah,
is grim as fuck. So he's speaking to this guy, he's like, oh, hello, how are you doing? And some, marketing intern's trying to be nice to her boss.
Yeah.
So, was your commute long? Oh, I come in from Hertfordshire, don't you know? Like, and I bet you do in your 8-bedroom mansion.
Yeah.
Top. And he's like, what about you? And she's like, oh, I've just got a short commute from Peckham. And he's like, oh, yeah. And they're just trying to make this conversation. It's just painful. They can't wait to get away from each other.
Yeah.
Don't do that to people.
I think there's another leader thing they're going on there because, and I remember this, like, I was like ops director in the previous agency, but I think I was there more with the team like day to day. So it wasn't such a big thing. I think but the other thing I would say, if you're a leader, you've got to look positive all the time. You've got to be like, and I don't mean you've got to be fake. I just mean you've got to keep that, your feelings impact other people. It definitely does as a leader.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the other thing, like it's this thing I do miss about an office, to be honest, but equally, I remember like for Chris, it would be quite hard because especially for him. So sorry, Chris was the MD of the agency.
The aforementioned husband.
Yeah, aforementioned husband. And I remember talking to him about this and it hit me because he was like, he's coming in from doing like sales and it's really hard. Like there's a lot of pressure on him and he didn't have somebody like, you've got Ray, for example, to manage an SEO perspective. He didn't have anyone in that middle role. It was literally him and then like manager level. And the team were great, but he had a lot. He had to deal with the day to day. He'd be coming into the office and he would sometimes be quite, probably a bit more direct than maybe he should have been, but it's because also he's got that pressure on him. And I think that's the thing, like it's, at least if you're, if you are remote, at least you can take that time to yourself when you need to, and you can go in when you need to. And it's not about hiding anything. It's just about being human.
Sometimes it is about hiding stuff. I don't want to see your just woke up team.
That's fair.
Keep your cameras off. I don't care.
But I mean, do you know what I mean? It's not about deliberately trying to be like, we are human, we're people, like we're going to have emotions, it's going to happen. But at least sometimes, it's easier when I'm somebody, I get my power from being on my own, my energy from being on my own and with other people, which works quite well. Because then when I'm in front of people, I get energy. But I do need that time. So it does depend as well what sort of person you are. But
yeah, that's interesting. I think I'm probably the same, like an ambivert type thing. So I definitely need long periods of time alone to recharge. And actually, one of the changes I've made in my life recently was I was cleaning so I do this thing where I just get rid of everything I own pretty systematically all the time. So I'll just give it like all the stuff that I've bought over time, I'll just give it to people or sell it or something like that. And I was cleaning up and I found my old iPhone, my iPhone X from like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm like, oh.
Is that it?
This is it. Oh. But it doesn't look like it's old.
No.
And it works fine.
And it's a nice size.
Yeah. And that's what she said. And so, I was like, why did I buy a new fancy iPhone? What was going through my head?
Marketing.
Right. They got me. Goddamn Steve Jobs. Glad you're dead. No, that's bad. But why doing that? Anyway, so I got this phone and I'm like, well, let's take all the social media apps off.
Okay.
Done that.
Brilliant.
Use Sprout Social only for any like work-related stuff. Ideally going to get a social media manager so they can focus on it.
Brilliant.
And also took my browser off the phone, which was really telling. So I'd go and sit down for have some dinner at night. And what's the first thing I do? I'm sitting there eating and go for the phone. I'm like, oh, I can either do banking or email.
Come on.
Put it away. And then I go and sit on the couch and I'm watching some Peaky Blinders on Netflix or something like that. And then what do? Go for the phone.
Yeah.
So the less I look at the phone and the less I'm in it, and actually just practicing being a bit bored sometimes has made my brain better. And this is a personal thing. So I had a real full, and you're going to laugh at this, I had an actual TikTok addiction.
I'm not laughing because it was true.
Yeah.
I saw it.
So I was sitting down with Chris actually one day and I was showing him my phone, my screen time. I'm like, on Saturday I spent 12 hours on TikTok and he's like, oh yeah, thinking,
Yeah.
You're just picking a big number to
Yeah.
exaggerate, hyperbole, to prove the point. You're on it a lot. I'm like, no, actually. And he's like, dude, you opened it when you woke up, looked at it consistently
Yeah.
until you went to sleep. And I'm like, I actually remember going to the bathroom, leaving it on, the video repeating when it was sitting on the sink, and then coming, so it never went off
Wow. Okay, I didn't realise that.
for multiple days. So that would be my weekend, Saturday, Sunday. That just like dun, dun,
And what
dun,
was the
dun,
impact on you?
you don't realize at the time, but there's a come down because I think you get so flooded with dopamine that you feel quite sad, or I do, after I use it for a really long time, because you've got what feels like reward chemicals without doing anything for the reward. So that's one thing. Also, just a pure waste of time. Like, you got to think, like, what kind of human do you want to be? Not that. And I've got like a bookshelf full of great books to read. So that's when I deleted it the other day. Do you know what I done instead of look at social the other day?
Did you read a book?
Read a book. Do you know what I've done after that?
Go on.
Organized my notes.
On when you say that, what?
Digital notes. So like, I'm one of these people that if I've got a problem or I need to, I think by writing. So I've got thousands of these different notes, but I never re-look at them.
Okay.
So I've got this thing called Obsidian Note Taker. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's so good.
I'm a big note person.
Yeah. We should actually talk about how you do notes and organization. But this particular thing, it allows you to put backlinks in your notes.
Okay.
So
Think back.
Oh, I know. Just in case. Well, the person's probably not listening to this. We done an interview with someone.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
So you tell the story.
Yeah. So we were just doing an interview, and we've been told about how they'd reached out and
Like a senior level interview.
Yeah. Talking about getting link backs, and I think I just thought, right, okay, I can see what's happening here, and what's the time sort of thing. So just a little bit awkward because actually they were talking about backlinks.
Yeah, and I know for anyone listening, you're like, link backs, backlinks, it's pretty much the same thing. Listen, when you work in this industry and this person had 15 years of experience.
Yeah.
If you work in this industry for 15 years and you're calling backlinks, link backs, and referring to Twitter as the Twitters, you can fuck off. There's no way. So I honestly made a real genuine mistake in an interview because I thought, Outback and those jerky companies and stuff like that. I thought she was talking about a client or something.
Okay.
So I stopped. I'm like, sorry, link backs, is that?
I didn't.
What's that? Like a client? In retrospect, that sounded like I was taking the complete piss out of her. I didn't.
I thought you were genuinely asking.
I was genuinely asking.
Yeah, but I was like, oh, so so that was interesting. Sorry, I you were talking about your notes thing. Sorry, that was a tangent.
Notes, yeah. So there's a format called Zettelkasten, which is a way of organizing notes. So my main notes is something called standard notes, which is encrypted at rest because I put a lot of personal stuff in there. So if I lose my computer or if it's hacked, anything like that, it's completely encrypted. So if I lose the password, I lose everything, which we're not sure about that. But that's what I want. It makes me feel secure.
Makes sense.
In terms of organizing it, I use something. There's a guy called Tiago Forte who has a book called Building a Second Brain. I'm real fun at parties, by the way.
Getting all the invites.
Yeah. And he uses something called the PARA method, which is projects, areas of responsibility, resources, and archive. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, it does. I've seen that somewhere. Yeah.
And projects are active projects, things that are happening right now that have got an end date. Areas of responsibility, things that don't really have an end date but need to be maintained. So recruitment, operations are all areas of responsibility. Resources are things that just need to be maintained over time that you need to do your job. So cred stacks and templates and stuff like that. And archive is stuff that you just need to store but doesn't change. So legal and general insurance forms, contracts, all that sort of thing. So I organized everything with this tagging system and this backlinking system, and it felt great because I had multiple note systems. I had Bear apps. I had Bear app as in an app called Bear, not I think I'm from South London. I'm saying I had Bear apps. Apple Notes, and a bunch of others, and just combined them all instead of going on social media. Weirdly satisfying.
I was going to say very satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you take notes?
So in terms of like day to day, if I'm I always have a way of taking notes. So be that if I'm at my laptop, obviously my thing is I've got like Excel spreadsheet and it's organized the way I need it. It just means nothing. What my thing is I want to know that I can write something down. I'm not going to forget it at the right time. So personally, I've got something on my phone that I use, and that'll be my literally brain dump whenever I stop thinking about it. If I get up in the morning, I've thought about something before I go to bed, and it's more just to get stuff out of my head. And then from a work perspective, it's like, how do I organise stuff to know that, because I'm always juggling a lot of stuff, but that works for me because I have a way of documenting things, so I know that I need to pick it up at the right time. So I've never got a massive list in front of me. I keep it quite focused, which then works, so I don't feel stressed. But I know the stuff that I need to get done is going to get done. And then within that, I've got the things that I have to get done today.
Do you have what is there a personal task management tool that you use outside of what our stuff is?
I do. Do you know what? I use an Excel workbook.
Really?
Yeah, because
you're Excel to the core, eh?
Yeah, like
I love that. That's great.
It's because I've actually tried different stuff, but I was like, I need something. This is just something I've built out that works for me, and the way that I do it sounds a bit weird, but I do it like on a weekly basis. But then I'll do like a couple of weeks in advance, and then I put stuff in my calendar, and then stuff from my calendar gets brought into the spreadsheet. So it's always a way of like ongoing, nothing's going to get forgotten. I know where things are. I'm always like prioritizing things and putting them in the right place. So I've never got a long list, because for me, a long list is that's frustrating. Yeah. It's anxiety provoking. So when I see like people's inboxes, for example, I'm like, oh, like, that would just.
I was thinking that have you heard of GTD, Getting Things Done? It's a book by a guy called David Allen.
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
So his whole thing is like the human mind is meant to be a creativity and analytical center, not a storage device.
Yeah.
So, and he thinks email is the absolute devil. What I was going to ask you is like, how do you capture information? So I use something called To Do, but it's spelled TEUXDEUX. And it's a very minimalist to do thing. So you have, it's like a Monday through Friday thing. You just put the tasks that you need to do Monday through Friday, and you tick them off as you go. If you don't complete them on the day you're supposed to, it automatically rolls it over to the next.
So actually, that's what I do in Excel. That's weird, because that describes exactly what I do. So it's never I've got my target. It's never a lot of effort, because I'm literally like, well, I know that I can do these tomorrow, so I just literally just move them across. That's what I do. Because
the sort of stuff that we do, this is the challenge with any sort of like kind of leadership work, is with our deliverables in the agency, there's time against them. So like we know when it comes to like writing a press release, we know how long that takes. Yeah. But if it's like, come up with a new way of doing X, there's no real, you can kind of allocate time in your day, but there's no like hard time that you need to do it within.
But that's where I think there should be, because then, but that's how we can definitely like scope it in. I get what you're saying. I suppose the way I work, because the projects I work on, so for example, we want to look at revisit the PR process. Then what I tend to do is I'm like, right, I know this is my priority. I'm going to aim to get, for example, a first draft to share with you in terms of my plan by, I don't know, like this week, because that's realistic.
In terms of the actual time that you give it, how do you do that?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think I
don't really think about time.
See, I think in my head, I'll look at practically speaking, I'll look what I've already got scheduled in. That's the other thing I have actually in front of me. I obviously have my calendar, but I actually also have on a day, I have a list of, these are my meetings. This is what I want to work on, because then I can more easily plan it out. The way that I'll do it is I'll block time. And I think, there's like the deep work thing, which
have you read that book?
I've read, I'll be honest, I've listened to half of it on Audible.
It's quite good.
Yeah, it is. It's very relevant. I've still got it on my Audible. But yeah, it makes sense as well, because again, I can take a lot of information in, but I have to park stuff, which is how I work, because then I just get more done. So the deep work, the idea of blocking things out does work for me, because actually I'll perhaps do the little bits that need to get done in the morning. Then I'm like, right, I'm just going to focus on this now. If anything comes up, you know, I can say to somebody, I'll pick that up later. I'll look at it tomorrow, because then it's off my plate, but I've acknowledged it. So yeah, that's what I tend to do. And I think normally if it's a planning thing, this is really broad. It does depend what you're doing. But normally if I've got like a few hours solid, because once for me, it's we talked earlier about more, think more, do less. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing for me. It's just having that time to actually put the stuff down and then structure it.
Yes.
And then come back to it as well with fresh eyes, probably the next day.
It's weird. We do almost the exact same thing. So when it comes to any sort of like building work for me, so that I need to think stuff through, I give myself Pomodoros. So I'll do 20 minutes, stop, 20 minutes, stop, 20 minutes, stop. And I'll do a batch of 3. But within 20 minutes, when I time box it, weirdly, it makes me very, like, because you know that if you stop, you're not going to get it done. So you just put your first draft down with skeleton outline.
That's it.
Even if it's rubbish, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Then break, then go back to it and be like, right, now let's make this something. And then you can start properly building it out and fleshing it out. But it should not take more than 20 minutes, because that's when your procrastination will kick in and be like, you should put a load of washing on. You should
exactly
go make a cup of tea. You should whatever.
And I think also you feel a lot, the way I see it as well, I feel quite good. I don't, also you also don't force it too much, but I know, I always make sure I start it when I know I'm in a point where I'm in a good place to focus on it. Mm. And I can probably do, to be honest, this isn't the Pomodoro thing, but I do feel like I probably do maybe like 45 minutes and then I'll just take a break. I'll always make sure anything like that that's a bigger task, that's a project, I'll always make sure I can come back to it over the next couple of days. Like I'm not the best person to rush things. I'm really not, because it's just because I like to come back with it fresh eyes. And then I feel like when I take other people through it, it feels more thought out. It feels more structured. Mm-hmm. And I think it's that balance as well. Doing something's better than nothing. That's the other thing. You don't want it. Yes, you want it to be good. But I've also learned over the years from, like, it comes back to school, because I think I handed in a couple of projects late and the teachers refused to look at it. For me, it's a massive learning. Yeah, but I was like, they did in the end. But I realised actually it's better to get it good enough. And I like things to be, you know, I'm a detail person, but equally I'd rather there's a balance. Like, you want to spend a good amount of time on it to be good. But equally, I'm like, there's no point me spending too long on the first draft, because actually once I've come back to it or discussed it with somebody, it's going to change.
Yeah, good writing is not writing, it's editing. So just get it down.
Yeah.
Talking about school, did you ever have punishment exercises in your school?
No.
Or a punny, as we called it.
You obviously did.
Well, yeah, but it was like, you know, like the old Victorian thing is like writing lines.
Yeah, did you have that?
Well, no, we had like a school rule charter that we had to write out, and it was like 2 sides of A4. We had to just write it out as a punishment exercise. So if you done something wrong in class, the teacher would be like, right, that's a punishment exercise, and you'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake, sir. And he's like, that's 2, and you're like, Jesus. He's like, that's 3. And like every time you reacted, so you have 3 back-to-back things of the school rules. So I remember it was in drama class. Come on. And I know, I can't believe I done drama. It was actually good fun. I think I fancied someone in the class. That's probably why. And so I got these 4 punishment exercises to do. So it took ages, man, and it's dull, right? And at registration,
you're literally copying it.
Yes.
Oh my god.
And then it was quite effective. It's like a non-violent way of punishing people.
Yeah.
Hand it into your registration teacher. Me thinking, oh, he's gonna at least look at it and check it. He's like, thanks. Rip.
Oh my
god. I was like,
that took me. You know, you're gonna look at it.
And of course, did you do it again? You did not.
No.
So it was quite a good way of instilling whatever that was. But yeah, we're on the hour.
Yeah, cool. And one thing I do want to pick up, actually, very importantly, you're off on holiday in a couple of weeks. You're taking time off.
I know.
So what are you doing on holiday?
Well, I mean, I'm going to an SEO conference.
At the beginning of the holiday.
Yeah, I'm going to SEO on the beach
Mhm.
on the 18th and 19th, and then I'm staying there for the full week in La Manga. So I've booked like a really fancy hotel, which is like an hour away from the event, which we'll go to and just like peace out, take a bunch of books, and just bake in the sun really, and just do whole load of nothing. Not done that since New Year 2020, New Year 2019. Yeah, that's the last
Wow.
one.
That's crazy. It's like 2.5 years.
Yeah, people say that. I think that's like a very like Western British thing. It's like you've not taken a break in 2.5 years. Then you go to like any other country, and it's like we
I
haven't been
know.
on holiday in 20 years.
Yeah.
But no, it is important to take breaks. To be fair, I did
Yeah.
take a long weekend in Cornwall last April, I think.
Yeah.
Which was great. Swam in the sea.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
That was
La Manga will be a little bit warmer, hopefully.
it'll be a little bit warmer. Yeah, and also like you get to see some. The nice thing about it is you get to see pals. I think one of the reasons why I don't go on holidays is get ready for the sob story. As a single man, unless you're going to like a party place, which I'm not into. Like going,
Yeah.
I used to go to Ibiza every quarter for a client thing, and it
Oh,
just
wow.
massively put me off. Just
Oh,
I
really?
hate everything about it. Yeah, there's a cool
Okay.
hippie part of Ibiza, which is kind of chill and nice.
Yeah.
But the whole like, jelly shots or like drinking tequila out of someone's belly button is fine when you're 19, but
Yeah. A bit different now.
yeah, less into it, and also not COVID safe.
Guys and girls.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to taking a bit of a break. But as a single guy, the prospect of just going on your own and just looking out the window is a bit like, I would actually just rather be here with my pals and like, that
I
sort of
get
thing.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I've been there as well. And I think that is it. It was more like I'd end up like going to see people who lived abroad. That was always
that's
quite
a
a
good idea.
good, yeah, that was like a nice thing because then you had like nice, like, go and see them, hang out, but then you'd probably have a bit, maybe if they were working or whatever, you'd have a bit of time to yourself. That was always quite a nice balance.
That's a great idea, actually. Go see some friends that live abroad,
Yeah.
but do it when they're working. Because the thing that I would hate is living in someone's house for a week.
Oh, I didn't stay at theirs. I booked a hotel. That's
Great
the other
idea.
thing. Because
Maybe
then
I'll go see Yuri in Ljubljana, go to Lake Bled.
Where do you want
Bled's
to go?
gorgeous. Yeah. Have you been to Lake Bled?
No.
Amazing.
Where is it?
It's near Kranjska Gora in Slovenia.
Oh, wow. Oh, I've seen pictures, but I haven't, yeah. Never
Phenomenal. I absolutely love the place and the people as well. It's just phenomenal. Nina, who's one of our old developers, her parents had a vineyard in there, and it was on the
Oh,
border
wow.
between Slovenia and Italy.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, it was
Oh,
just. I've
Can you
never
go and
been
visit?
that calm. Probably, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
when I do visit, I'll probably go and see her. But that's a good idea. Go see some people.
Yeah.
So if anyone's listening to this that doesn't live in the UK and your climate is nice,
There you go.
invite
Ross is
please.
coming to see you.
Yeah. Are you
That's-
taking holidays?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm actually first time I think we went away in beginning of end of September. So before I started working with Taipei. But yeah, I'm actually going to Edinburgh next week, which
Mistake.
so not going for the it's obviously not the good weather, but it looks like it's going to be okay.
It'll
But
be all right.
yeah, it looks like it's going to be 15 degrees. I'm like, that's fine.
That's our summer.
Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy. Taps off.
I'm super excited. Like I'm just going with my mum for a few days, and I think obviously it's the Queen's Jubilee. I thought it would be a good week to have off because it would probably be quite quiet anyway, like in work. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to being somewhere else, just visiting somewhere new and just being out of London because I love London. I love being here, but it would just be nice to be somewhere a bit different for a few days. And yeah, and then we've got SEO on the beach as well. And then the end of the month, we've got a wedding just outside Paris. And we've actually got quite a big month coming up, which is exciting.
All happening for you.
Yes.
That's actually, I'm going to France for the first time on Monday. So for a client thing. But
Oh, you are? Yes.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. You're actually going, exactly. You're going to visit a client abroad.
yeah,
Really exciting.
it's been ages since we've done that. Actually, we used to do it like literally every quarter for their QBRs, but because of COVID and whatever,
Yeah.
we couldn't go. But yeah, taking the team for the first time as well. Going to be exciting. But what's more exciting is the company meeting that we're about to have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank
that
you
note.
for taking the time, and thanks for listening, everyone. And we shall talk to you again same time next month.